All right, good afternoon and welcome to the second webinar in our series, the Wisconsin Cover Crop and Conservation Conversations. This webinar is sponsored by the Cover Crops Research and Outreach Project, a collaboration between the USDA Dairy Forage Research Center, the Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, University of Wisconsin-Madison Center for Integrated Ag Systems, and the University of Wisconsin-Madison Nutrient and Pest Management Program. Like last week, I'm Jamie Patton with the MPM program, and I'm going to be your host for today. So a few housekeeping items. I know at this point in our virtual lives, many of us are familiar with this Zoom technology, but I'm going to go through some simple operations. So please keep your microphones and your videos off during the webinar. The mute and the video controls are located on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Also, at any time, please feel free to type any questions for our presenters into the chat. The chat is located in the middle bottom of your screen. So if you have any technical difficulties or questions with the Zoom technology, you can type your question into the chat. And in a second, I'm going to be posting the call-in information if your audio isn't working. So if you're having troubles getting the sound on your computer, please use the call-in option. It seems to work quite well. With that, I should stop sharing. And so with that, I'm going to move on to our next speakers. So we're going to have a lightning type format for today. So we're going to start off with Mrill Ingram and Dan Smith, who are going to be talking about the Citizen Soil Science, the Citizen Cover Crop Project with the CCROP group. And after that, we're going to have a series of lightning presentations. Each one will be approximately 5 minutes long, and we're going to save all the questions for the end. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dan and Mrill with their presentation. Take it away.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm super happy to be able to share with you the results of this citizen science effort. I'm going to share my screen, and also thank you, Jamie, for your efforts pulling all this together. I'm really appreciating the opportunities to hear from other people too. So I'm going to talk about this citizen science effort that happened last year, our COVID year, and it was really about expanding what's going on with a group called CCROP, which is a multi-institutional group. We've got research folks in the university, as well as community partners. We work with Michael Fields, which does research and education and policy work on sustainable agriculture, and also people in extension, in particular, Dan Smith of MPM was obviously a big part of this project, as was Greg Sanford, who's with the agronomy department. Just, of course, my little front arrow button is being sticky here. There we go. So those are some of the folks that just slid by really quickly. Obviously, I'm not sure you guys are seeing a lag, but I was seeing a lag. So this multiple group, this conversation or this project I'm talking about started with a dinner table conversation where we were trying to think about the fact that cover crops are getting a lot of interest, but still don't represent a huge amount of land in Wisconsin. People continue to have a lot of questions. And we'd also done a survey of cover crop and ag education providers around the state. And we really were hearing that there was a great deal of interest in cover crops, but at the same time, locally specific, locally appropriate information was thin. And as you can see, over 60% of those almost 90 folks who responded said they did not have information that they needed, although they had a lot of interest and questions. And also, it really mattered where in the state. Overall, you know, people did feel like they didn't necessarily have what they needed in every region, but in particular, the northern part of the state, exactly what's going on with cover crops, what people need, what happens when they use them. There's still a lot of questions there. And the column on the left here that says central also includes people who work statewide. So overall, people are really looking for more information that's specific to Wisconsin. And one of the nice things for us was that we are collaborating through Greg, who manages WIX, which is one of the longest running kind of cropping trials in the country. he's just got a big database about cover crops and is working in concert with other ag research stations. So there is a big database, even if it isn't regionally covering everything, but we have a lot of information, which is interesting to kind of compare to. And so we really were thinking, well, the great thing about what we could do is to augment what's going on and to put in context the new information that we really need from people who are kind of pushing the envelope out in the field, doing new things, tinkering with cover crops in new ways. And I just wanted to say two quick things. The IRB process, which is the kind of human subjects protocol that you have to go through at the university, turned out to be really good for us in the sense of both helping us know how to ensure people's privacy with certain steps, but also really reinforcing how important communication is, following through on what we promise to people. And really that the goal here isn't just extracting information from folks, but really learning enough about how they're using cover crops and what their questions are, so that our information can be in that context. And we can think more as we're like doing research trials and other things about how this, quote, technology of cover cropping is being used and what it is that people want to know. So it was really like that two-way street and the empowerment thing, which made us super happy about the idea of this project. We had 3 phases. There was a good hefty 30 question long survey, which people were good about filling out. We asked in phase 2 that people send us photos as cover crops emerged. And also we wanted people to collect biomass samples. This was all happening on a single field. And another great element here was that we were super lucky to have NRCS support, which allowed us to provide incentive payments to the farmers who participated. So we had I think we had about 20 sign up, but people able to see it all the way through to the end of phase 3 were about 15, but over half those folks were in areas that we did not have cover cropping data before. So we were really able to expand what was going on. And the outreach part of this, where we kind of got to people involved using the listserv for all county conservation staff and regional staff, the Wisconsin Crop Manager newsletter, and the producer-led watershed network that DATCP helps facilitate. So all those were really important. And we want to kind of engage with all of those networks again, because we're really wanting to see this as kind of the first iteration. And so we're going to revisit the survey a little bit and some other things, but we got some great data back. And overall, one significant thing was certainly the growing degree days. The length of your growing season matters a lot to cover crops, but the kinds of data we got back really do fit the patterns in that larger data set. So we know we're getting good information back from people that really helps augment what we've got going on. So we're excited about revisiting, and we're going to kick this off soon. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who might say a little bit about some of the results that we got.
Thanks, Mrill. I'll go ahead and share a screen here of the results that we received. We visited 15 farms this fall, and we collected biomass samples from those farms. And we were really interested to see that link between growing degree units, location in the state, cover crop, species selected, and previous crop. The main takeaway: phenomenal success of cover crops throughout the state of Wisconsin following winter wheat and vegetable crops, including green beans and peas. A couple of highlights from this slide very quickly. One of our locations was after grain corn in Iowa County. 450 growing degree units were received on that cover crop stand, and that's due to the planting date between September 22nd. And then we went out and visited that field on the 3rd of November. We had about 1/10 of a ton of dry biomass per acre, very small amount of biomass. Compare that to a location in Sauk County that was planted on the 18th of July, a diversified mix of cover crops following peas. When I visited this farm, they were currently grazing that farm. The cover crop was approximately 48 inches tall. They received 2,178 growing degree units on that cover crop. So harnessing that growing degree unit availability at the end of the season is very critical for good, successful cover crops. 3.2 tons of dry biomass. And then finally, to highlight one of our winter wheat stands all the way up in Barron County, great stand of cover crops, diversified mix again, planted on the 15th of August, harvested on the 6th of November. The biomass was 2.8 tons, and again, 1,464 growing degree units. So really successful cover crops planted after some of these summer seeded crops. Successful cover crops planted after our grain crops. We expect a lot of those cover crop species to overwinter, so we'd have a nice stand of cover crops this spring, of course. And these are available in a printed report that we can share with everyone. A couple notes on cover crop biomass. Why is this important? Well, cover crop biomass is kind of the gold standard of data that we think about when we assess cover crop stands. And that's because it gives us a good idea about how much soil is being covered by green material. Percent cover is also another metric we can use to examine this a little bit more in depth. This is that stand in Sauk County, 48-inch tall cover crop, diversified cover crop mix, great stand of cover crops. This is that stand in Iowa County. Again, you can see quite a bit of soil still. However, those cover crops, some of those species are going to overwinter, have a nice stand this spring to plant into potentially. And then finally, this is that stand up in Barron County, great stand of cover crops following winter wheat. I want to wrap this up by thanking everyone involved in this project. Thank you to all the participating farmers. Greatly appreciate the collaboration that we had over the last year. We hope to continue. We'll begin advertising the survey in midsummer, late June, early July. We'll open that up to start collecting data again this year, and then we plan on traveling around again this fall before the first hard killing frost, probably early November, early October, to collect those biomass samples. And again, thank you to the USDA, NRCS, Wisconsin office for helping support those farmer stipends. Jamie, with that, I'll turn it back on over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan and Mrill, for that presentation. Next, we're going to hear from Cheyenne Behnke and Tara Wachowski with Manitowoc County Soil and Water Conservation District on their countywide interactive cover crop map and tour. Ladies?
Thanks, Jamie. Like Jamie said, I'm Cheyenne, and this is Tara. We're from Manitowoc County. And in the past, we had a self-guided cover crop tour that we worked with local producers to put on. But it was kind of hard to track how many people were going and if it was successful or not. So this past fall, we started a new cover crop tour. We worked with about 20 local producers, and we put cover crop signs at their fields, and then we made an interactive map that people could go to. So the map includes 34 cover crop fields. Throughout those fields, there's 15 different kinds of cover crops being grown. The cover crops range from something simple like winter rye to different 4-way mixes. They used different kinds of establishment methods. Some did no-till, some did manure applications before planting, others did manure applications after they planted their cover crop when it came up. We had a couple that tried air seeding with fertilizer. A lot of them said in the spring of 2021, so this spring they plan on no-tilling corn or soybeans into their cover crop fields. Most of the cover crops were winter kill. We do have a couple of people that are planning on planting green into these fields. We plan to do a follow-up with most of these farmers in springtime, trying to make a couple of videos of what the cover crops look like now. So when we went out to meet with the farmers, we just asked them how they planted it, some things that they learned from it, how long they've been doing cover crops, and if they plan to do it again. Working with so many different producers, we also worked with multiple different agronomists in our county. So it was really cool to see what different ideas everybody had and how they were all making cover crops work successfully on their farms. Some of the strengths of our project was that this was a good way to let people know what their neighbor was doing. Everyone's always interested in what their neighbor is trying. So this was a way for them to see without necessarily asking them. And with COVID, it was kind of hard to get meetings done. So this was an interactive way that people could either sit at home and watch these videos about the different cover crops being done, or go out to the field and walk through the field and look at it and watch the video while the farmer explained what was happening.
You haven't shared your screen. Thank you.
Can you see it now, Jamie?
Yep.
Sorry about that.
So here's our map. Tara's moving it around. It's on Google Earth online. And then each of the different points on there is a different cover crop field throughout the county. And then as you click on a point, it'll zoom in and it'll show the video that we made of that field. So we're just gonna play a short one here quick.
We've been cover cropping for 5 years now, working with NRCS for 3. What we're standing in right now is a mix of rye, rape, and radish. Rye was planted at 30 pounds per acre. Rape and radish were 5 pounds a piece. Planting date was August 13th of 2020, shortly after taking straw off of.
All right, so you kind of get the idea of that video. Just a little bit about the logistics of it. It took us about 2 months to pull off this project. We had the signs a year prior, which it's a cover crop sign that each of our farms that we cost share with post in their field. And it says cover crops for soil health and clean water. So it took us about a month to post the signs and then interview each of the producers. And then, so we started that in September, and by October, we posted the project, which had a reach of about 4.7 thousand people, and possibly more. It's kind of hard to track some of the engagement if people, if they just use the map to visit the fields. So if you want to try something like this, a few tools that you'll need is you'll need to have a Google account. You'll need to use YouTube. We use just a regular iPhone to tape the videos. I used an app called Splice to edit the videos. And then we used Canva to create some of the YouTube thumbprint tools. Some lessons learned. Just make sure that you're keeping really good records of where the signs are located. If you can get help, get help. It's a lot of work to put the signs and move the signs. And then we spread this out for kind of a lengthy process to get more engagement. But pick a couple weeks and do your filming, and I think it'll make the whole process a little bit more efficient for you. And some things that we would like to improve upon next year are just kind of developing some strategies for better tracking who is actually engaging with the MAP project. So with that, we'll turn it over to the next presenter, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tara and Cheyenne. I'm sure people are really excited to think about doing this in their own counties. It's a great idea, and particularly in this time of our virtual world. So speaking of virtual, we're going to move on to Whitney Prestby, a UW Natural Resource educator who is going to present on #Live from the Field, Lessons Learned from Virtual Programming. Whitney?
Sorry about that. I gotta unmute myself here, start my video, and start over. All right. So thanks, Jamie. So yeah, we are talking to this today about using Facebook Live as a platform for virtual field days. So obviously last year we had to make some adjustments to our outreach plan with the Fox demo farms and the Door-Kewaunee demo farms. And so we started to utilize Facebook Live as our platform for our series Live from the Field. So this turned out to be a pretty useful tool for engaging with other with new audiences and just getting our message out. And so even as we start to get back to some type of normalcy this year, I think this is going to be a tool that we continue to use. So I wanted to share a little bit about some of the lessons that we've learned over the last year. So so our audience, so looking to engage with new audiences, obviously creating a Facebook event is something that is important to get that message out, provide information about the field day or the virtual event, but boosting your content is so critical. So for those of you who know me, you've probably heard me talk about this, but if you're going to take the time to go through and create and manage a Facebook account, build content, do a virtual field day, create videos, boosting is really important to make sure that that content is viewed by your audience. A little bit of money can go a long way, but those targeted ads are a really important piece to this puzzle. The field days, keep them short and sweet. Pick one topic and stick to that topic for your event. When we first started last July, we were thinking, these are going to be in lieu of our in-person events, so we wanted to cover a lot of stuff. And that was kind of a mistake when we started to look at the level of engagement and the viewership of people tuning in. We were in the 25 to 30 minute range, and honestly, it's too much time for people's attention in the virtual space for them to really stay engaged with the content. So by the end of the season, we were in more of like the 10 to 12 minute. I could see an argument for maybe cutting that even down. But it really is important to just stick to a single topic. Don't try to move from different places in the field. If you're talking about interseeding, stick to interseeding, stick to that particular field. It really does help keep that level of engagement. And if that means you do more of these events, I think that's better than trying to cram too many things into one 30-minute, 40-minute event. So the back end of this, so what do you need to prepare? So tech checks are incredibly important, making sure that you have reception out in the field. Bring multiple devices. If you have a work phone, a personal phone that are in different networks, bring them out, see which one's going to work better. Bring hotspots, ask partners who have different networks. It really is important to make sure that you have quality reception out in the field. And don't just go out to do a tech check prior to the event and say, oh, I've got 2 bars, this will work. Actually try it in Facebook. So I recommend creating a fake Facebook group just to try these things out, get used to the functions of Facebook Live, what it looks like when people are asking questions, and then again for that tech check to make sure that the quality is okay. Having someone out there to monitor the questions coming in is really helpful. So the person who's recording can just focus on recording, and someone then is monitoring the questions coming in live so that there's can be that real-time interaction. And we did whenever we could, we would try to get someone who we know has some time available to tune in, have some prepped questions just to make sure that Q&A section was rolling. One thing just to note here, as far as technology goes, this was something I was not expecting the first time we tried this. It was a hot July day, and it turned out that my phone mid-event overheated and died, and so we were scrambling. I tried to log on to someone else's phone through their Facebook account. I'm the sole administrator for our account, so I was trying to log in. I have dual security, so it's sending a text message to my dead phone. So we were burying it under cover crops and the residue and trying to cool it off. So that was a lesson learned, that always have a backup ready, logged in, ready to go. So if something does happen like that, that's a good fail-safe. And then we carry an umbrella now. So whoever's recording can actually just try to stay as shaded as possible, especially in those summer months when it can get really hot out. So a couple of things just to keep in mind. And then take into consideration the weather, so the heat, but then also the wind. Obviously, the audio piece of that is really important. You want to make sure that your audience can hear the content in the speaker. So investing in a microphone is really important. And then if it's a really windy day, we tried to muscle through one of our events last year, and it just did not pay off. It wasn't worth the time of the farmer or anyone who was involved in putting that on. So do consider that, postpone if necessary, because it's just, it's better if you go out on a good day. So I think that's my time. Feel free to reach out if we don't get to all the questions later today.
Thank you so much, Whitney. That is great advice. I would have never thought to bring an umbrella with me to the field to keep it shaded, but that is a great tip to take forward. So next, we're going to have Wade Motor, Executive Director of the Upper Sugar River Watershed Association, and Wade's going to present on print communications farmers want to read. Wade?
Great, thanks, Jamie. Yeah, I'm not sure how true the title is, but I'm just going to give you some examples of some communication strategies that we've tried with our group, and hopefully you can take some hints home with you and try them with your farmer group where you are. So getting started here, obviously COVID was a big problem last year. We couldn't have any field days or no in-person events. So, but our newsletters were always kind of successful because people seemed to hang on to them or reference them throughout the year. So we tried to do something where we almost recreated a field day or recreated some examples that you could do for our cost share program in 2020. This also kind of piggybacked on 2019 where we had a lot of interest, but then we also had a lot of rain. So like people that are first timers with cover crops weren't as successful. So we really want to take advantage of 2020 and piggyback off that interest. So we put together about a handful of farmers to see what they did in 2019, how it carried over to 2020, and put together kind of a sort of a slideshow sort of thing for a newsletter. And you can kind of see some of the examples here, pointing out some of the nitrogen fixing happening on the clover with Jerry's farm. Brian has some his winter wheat and spring barley. Just kind of giving a mix of examples here. You can see we have Dan and Dave here as well. Dave is a good example of someone that grazes in the watershed. Dan just having the beer can as a side example was a plus there, I thought. And then we kind of backed that up with our cost share program form at the end of the newsletter. So what ended up happening is I got a number of phone calls from farmers that said something like, I want to do what Dan tried, I want to do what Dave tried, or something like that. So I think to that point, it was pretty successful. Certainly not as good as an in-person event, but I think people kind of got an idea without having to go anywhere, I think was great. And they were able to kind of sit on that idea for a little bit and kind of think it over before they made a final decision. So I think overall it was pretty successful, and we'll keep doing it even past COVID. I think it worked out pretty well. A couple of things we've tried. Postcards have been kind of our main communication strategy by mail. We initially tried letters, like envelope with a letter inside that you open up. I'm not sure how many people read those. It seemed to get kind of long. We got kind of wordy. So we've been going with postcards. I mean, mainly because when you walk back from your mailbox, you kind of have to look at it. You have to read it a little bit. So even if someone's not totally interested, we're hopefully just getting the point across that, hey, we're having a field day, or hey, we're having an annual meeting coming up. You should come and join us. The other thing we're trying coming up soon, hopefully in another month or so, is we'll be doing some signage around our watershed with some of our member farmers. You can see the example off to the right here, and my really poorly photoshopped picture example on the bottom right of what it might look like along the roadside. So we're hoping to kind of scatter these around the watershed to all of our member farms, both to kind of get as a recruitment strategy for new farmers, but also to kind of serve as a PR statement for people driving around and just getting a feel for feel that the farmers are taking a stake in the watershed and the health of the land and water around us. So I think it's going to be a nice addition to our kind of our PR outreach strategies. That's all I had. I hope you can take something from that and build off it and make it even better than what I showed today. So I'll give it back to Jamie.
Thank you, Wade. I really love your newsletter. It's great to have those pictures and examples when people are trying to sign up for their cost share agreement. So great job. Next, we're going to have Michelle Probst, UW Natural Resource Educator, presenting on growing conservation by growing community. Michelle?
Thanks, Jamie. Oh, give me 1 second here. All right, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. So I'm going to be presenting about a producer-led webinar series that maybe those of you on the call today were able to tune into. So in my role, I do work with a lot of producer-led groups, mainly in the southeast portion of the state. And particularly when we were back actually in person, the 2020 producer-led workshop, really we saw a huge opportunity and a need for these producer-led groups to connect and learn from one another across the state. And, you know, we came together with DATCP, Discovery Farms, and trying to figure out, okay, how can we connect these groups more? Because getting together people across the state more than one time a year is pretty difficult logistically. So we were thinking about doing a webinar series. We want to do a webinar series to really just get these groups to learn from one another across the state. And we were planning this before the entire world went virtual. So again, the overall goal was to connect these producer-led groups. We weren't really sure how, or, you know, if webinars would be the best way to connect these groups. And so, you know, we were kind of trying it as a new tool to just see how it worked. But also, we then wanted to take that opportunity to really understand what are some of the successes of these groups? What are some of the challenges? What is the overall impact of these producer-led groups that they're having in their communities? So if any of you tuned into the webinar series, it was actually an interview format. And the questions that we asked were really getting at these successes, challenges, impacts of the groups. And we then took those interviews and we transcribed the entire interview and then analyzed them with the help of some of our evaluation specialists at Extension to, you know, really see where we could find very similar themes. So what I'm going to talk about today is really just honing in on those successes and challenges of the groups. And so what the main thing we found was that really community was in everything when talking about the producer-led groups. What was, you know, even when they were asked, when do you consider a conservation practice successful? Although they talked about, you know, very agronomic aspects like higher yield, less inputs, they also then all said that when you are successful at a practice, you need to share that information to other farmers in your community. What makes the producer-led groups successful? It's really farmers and even non-farmers coming together to sit down, listen to each other, and work together to find solutions. And you know, what does a producer-led group need to thrive? Communication was so important, that there's opportunities to communicate, to network, and really to create a space without competition, that they're not, you know, talking about who has the highest yields, that it's more of an open space where they can just, you know, present new ideas and new ways of doing things. When talking about advice for new groups, again, this communication and community came up so much that, you know, you need to have leaders who are willing to step up and, you know, bring that communication skills between farmers, non-farmers, and collaborators within your region to really get to that cooperation stage. And again, really avoid this competition at all, that we're all in this together and working together. So how are we going to take this and put it into practice? Again, knowing that community is so important in every aspect and what these groups feel makes them successful is really focusing on these relationship buildings. And, you know, even in the beginning, beyond just farmers, right? If we want folks who maybe have more of a you know, water quality background or interests, bringing them to the table as well, and focus on relationships. And not only just, you know, that you are from a lake association or that you are from a farmer-led group, but, you know, getting to know more about one another so that we can create that understanding and that connection to one another. And understanding that sometimes the solutions have to wait, and they'll take a while because relationship building is so important. And, us as, working in this sector, we always want things done. We just want to come to the table and just work on solutions. And I get that. But, sometimes focusing on those relationships can help build those long lasting solutions. And even as maybe you're in a group right now or and that the group has been around for a while, keeping relationship building as a focus of your initiatives as well. If you have a meeting and someone new comes to the group, do they feel welcome? Do they feel that open space that you're creating? And even when you have a new member come for the first time, make sure you give them direct connection with a farmer or with one of the leaders, so that they are able to have someone directly that they can contact. So again, as we talk a lot about the science behind some of these practices, and maybe as we're looking to bring in new stakeholders to some of these groups, relationship building and building this local community is very important. So with that, I can take any questions, I think, at the end, but interested to hear anyone else's ideas. So thanks, and I'll turn it to Jamie.
Thank you, Michelle. It's really important to emphasize that human dimension when we're trying to implement change on the landscape. So excellent job. It was great information for us to remind us of that importance of that human community. So next we have Stephanie Egner, conservation technician with Washington County Land Conservation. And if her technology is working, Stephanie's going to be showing us some information on connecting the urban rural communities in Washington County. Stephanie.
Hi, thanks, Jamie. Can you hear me all right?
Perfect. You got it.
It worked. Okay, I was like in a panic. So, okay, I'm actually going to talk a little bit today about a field day that was held in 2019. And we took the focus, this is Washington County, Cedar Creek Farmers producer-led group. We took the focus of connecting with our urban audience. And a lot of this comes about because we are less than 50% agriculture down here in Washington County, and the farmers definitely feel that most individuals who are not involved in agriculture have no idea what agriculture is all about. So the best way to try to connect everyone together was reaching out and finding partners. In the Cedar Creek watershed, we have the village of Jackson, which sits about in the middle of our small sub-basin of the Milwaukee River Basin. And again, Washington County served as the collaborator and Jackson as the partner. So this all came together in September of 2019. I just wanted to share a couple of quick thoughts, quick notes, how things went, how it helped us plan for future dates, and just give a little bit of tips and tricks for those who might be dealing with more of the urban and agricultural side of where you live. So the biggest thing that I wanted to say about our event was the location. Picking a good location where everyone can see you, it captures attention. We put up 3 big, huge tents. We were along Highway 60. We were very visible. And the only bad downside, I would say, was it looked like a big wedding. A lot of people didn't really know what was going on, weren't 100% sure if it was public, private. I think that could have been a factor into whether or not people were stopping. But I think if we had been a little bit further along with our social media and our Facebook, it would have helped. I did create a Facebook event, but some of us are not as Facebook savvy. So we just did the best we could with our event. I also am going to recommend that if you have a larger existing event that happens in your area or region, or somebody always knows that so-and-so has something in the summer, if you can coordinate something with that, sometimes that helps versus recreating a wheel. So our focus of our tents were, one was an agriculture tent, one was an urban tent, and actually one of them was just for entertainment. So our urban partners with the Village of Jackson, we reached out to our wastewater treatment plant. And this is a great partner because for those of you who know and deal with the DNR, but the MS4 permits and runoff, that education is part of those permits. So I'm going to recommend if you're reaching out to a lot of different people, start planning early. We started in spring, March, April. Our event was in September. We thought it would be early enough. It really wasn't. You think that you do have enough time, but there are so many little factors to think about. We try to ask everyone to be involved, but I put a note on there that says, kind of choose wisely. There are some that maybe just want to be there for the right or wrong reasons. Some don't want to be as involved. Others just want to show up the day of and be a part of it. So kind of pick your poison, but make sure that you have really good people who are willing to outreach and educate the best way that they can. We involved local businesses that had to do with runoff or rain gardens, or could teach about storm drain stenciling. So from the urban side of things, we had a nature center who was educating. We had our local garden facility, Badger State Waste, who deals with the urban waste management for the village of Jackson. So it was really nice to have those individuals involved. I'm also going to recommend that educators be directly involved with a lot of these partners, because a lot of times the individuals who hold these positions aren't necessarily used to teaching. So again, mesh your people and work together is my best advice for that. Let's see. So the farmer connection, we had a large tent with our Cedar Creek Farmers producer-led group. You can see here that the individuals in the gray t-shirts are 3 of our farmers who are very active in our group. The best thing for outreach for the non-agricultural public, and you all can probably attest to this, is that bringing anything and everything that you can for people to see, to touch, to do, to shake, to, I don't know, sit on, whatever they want to do. They're interested in what do farmers do and what are you doing for water quality. And Cedar Creek is the water body that these individuals are first protecting before it goes into the Milwaukee River. It is amazing for these farmers to outreach to these urban individuals and just, again, just sharing all of the good things with the no-till and the cover crops and prairie strips and things like that they're doing, that most people have no idea what's even going on right in their own watershed or right in their own community. We did great examples of the no-till versus tillage. A lot of this stems off of what we teach the 4th graders on our Ag Day farm tours. Really, that's about the level that you're reaching out to, regardless if these are kids or adults that are coming to learn about agriculture. We partnered with UW Extension. Jamie was in our pit. We also had Fond du Lac County and Dodge County Land Conservation Department employees come. So that was a lot of fun. So we were able to use outreaching people to share with ag education mixed in with our farmers who, like I said, aren't always used to being at the forefront of teaching. NRCS also came with the rainfall simulator. So again, I'm just going to say some of the challenges for the field day might have been finding the right farmers for the right place. They're not always used to being the ones who are out teaching others that aren't in agriculture. It's easy for them to talk farmer to farmer, but encourage those who want to participate and be a part of the education for that day. Make sure that you review the topics that you're going to talk about. A lot of them I did find wanted to just kind of come and show up that day and do their thing, but really had no idea kind of what was going on. So that was one of our challenges. But again, when you can mix farmers with educators, it definitely helps get the word across for agricultural education to the urban community. So that's my little spiel. I just wanted to share that we used the 2019 experiences for our fall field day we had last year, which was held on farm. So it's really nice that you can continue to learn from your good and both your bad as to what to do for field days and how to get people to attend.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Jamie.
So for those of you, as Stephanie said, I was at this field day, so I'm always impressed. Stephanie is so creative. So what she didn't highlight were the amazing youth activities that she had arranged around this tent to get them involved with the cover crops, with the soil. It was a fantastic event, so interactive, and that's why I was excited to have you come speak with us today. So thank you again, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thanks, Jamie.
So next, we're going to have Julie Peterson. She's a Pheasants Forever farm bill biologist, and she's going to talk with us about connecting with women to build conservation communities. Julie?
Hey there, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I see your presenter view for your PowerPoint, however.
All right, and how about now?
Perfect.
Perfect. All right, well, thanks, Jamie. Hi to you all. I'm a private lands biologist, and I help landowners achieve their wildlife and conservation goals in Northeast Wisconsin. Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever currently in our state employs 12 folks, and 6 of us are women. I'll speak briefly to why women, collaborated efforts, and new efforts moving forward to grow Wisconsin women in Wisconsin women in conservation. All right. So Pheasants Forever in 2015 joined with the Women Food and Egg Network and a bunch of other really awesome orgs in this state to focus on women's programming. Why, you may ask? Research showed that women are owning or co-owning 50% of the land in the United States. And according to Wisconsin's 2017 census, 35% of the land is owned by women here. Women learn differently than men. That's obvious to all of us, right? We just are different. We learn different, we interact different. So women tend to also be more interested in building social communities. They also tend to have a strong conservation value and ethic. Over the years, they've built our human communities. But traditionally in the conservation world, land management and decision-making has been dominated by males. It is imperative that women are supported and encouraged to build our conservation and ecological communities. Forever is working not only in this state, but across the country to connect and support women in building habitat, hunting, learning to hunt, supporting them to hunt, and to build a network that celebrates and increases conservation stewardship on the landscape. In 2017 and 2020, from 2017 and into 2020, even though we didn't really do much last year due to COVID, Pheasants Forever and Wisconsin Farmers Union collaborated and hosted 15 meetings, which connected about 325 women. And I know a bunch of you on the call today have been at those, so thank you for being there. It was great to meet so many great people. These 2 orgs recognize the need for the landscape to support the farmer and the pheasant. And a big thank you too to the 15 women who hosted the meetings at their farms, sharing their story, but also their challenges. These meetings were not only educational, but also a lot of fun, bringing women of all ages, backgrounds, and goals together from all over the state to share stories and experiences of how they're connected to the land. I think what Michelle also pointed out about it, it was a space of being, you know, non-competition and just kind of hanging out, networking with people, really chill, laid back, easygoing kind of space that was created. Every meeting had a focused topic ranging from soil health, cover crops, grazing, and Pheasants Forever's favorite, prairie and pollinator habitat. A farm tour and plenty of time for networking was had at these meetings. So in this last year, Michael Fields, Moses, Wisconsin Farmers Union, and Renewing the Countryside received a grant from NRCS to not only continue to grow the network of women around conservation, but also research the process as they go along. So that's pretty exciting. This group brings together women passionate about conservation, builds a network of peers and professionals to thrive, provides support through conservation coaches, and collaborates in order to steward our land for future generations. So please be a part and invite women that you know. Check out the website and register for one of the virtual meetings coming in April. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Julie. So these are always, if you have the opportunity to go, these are always excellent events. So, and as she mentioned, they look very different than our traditional field day. So they're always a lot of fun. So thank you, Julie, and to all of our speakers. So I'm waiting to see some questions pop up into our chat box. So please feel free to type them in there now. So the speakers have done a great job of answering the questions that are in there up till now. But I do have a question as we're waiting for our audience to think of some questions. So all of our speakers, so moving ahead, what creative things are you going to try in 2021 to get even more engagement into your outreach activities? So what's that new and exciting thing that you have hidden in your back pocket that you're going to pull out to engage audiences this year? Tough question, I know.
This isn't very well, so bear with me, but maybe within 2021, hopefully for sure by 2022, we may see an increase in in-person events. And so what does that look like? It's gonna be us all coming together again for the first time in probably a year. And, you know, so how can, you know, again, from my perspective, it's thinking, okay, maybe we should just take a step back. We haven't really seen each other for a year. Connecting over a virtual environment is different. So, you know, how can we kind of get back to fostering these relationships again and moving forward in some of our initiatives? So that's just my initial thought.
So planning on putting more opportunity for conversation in between some of the speakers and things along those lines?
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Others?
One thing that we're rolling out here in the Fox Demo Farms starting this spring is our mentorship pilot program. So we have 3 farms that we've been working with over the last 5 to 7 years who have gotten a good handle on their conservation practices. And so we are pairing them up with farmers who are just getting started. And so we're gonna run this program for 2 years, and along the way doing evaluations to see how this looks, you know, what is that partnership? How does it begin? How does it grow? What kind of support has that offered that newbie to get going on their journey with conservation practices? So excited to see how that looks and how it shakes out over the next couple of years, and then providing some guidance for other watersheds who are looking to maybe do something similar.
Excellent, thank you, Whitney. That is a fantastic idea. Stephanie, Julie, any ideas? Say I put you all on the spot. So audience, do you have any questions? Again, please put those in the chat box if you have any. Otherwise, as we move forward, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and remind you that we do have one last webinar coming next week. So if you haven't already, please register for that. Next week, we will focus on lightning talks from many of our researchers from across the state. So to give you an idea of who will be there, so we have individuals both from UW-Madison as well as UW-Green Bay, UW River Falls, and the USDA Dairy Forage Research Center. So giving us an idea and a spackling of research at all sorts of different kinds of institutions across the state, focusing on soil health and cover crops. So if you haven't already, again, please sign up. And if you have any final questions, thank you, Chelsea, for your comment on so many good ideas. There are. And so this is where I think oftentimes we get focused on the science, and sometimes we struggle on how to best communicate this information to others. So Josh has a question. So, and it just popped off on me. So let me call that back up. So Josh asked, do we have any thoughts for programming around the proposed NR 151 standards? So for those of you who are outside of the state, the new NR 151 standards in Wisconsin deal with groundwater nitrate issues. So presenters, do you have any thought about that as of yet? Or if you're like me, we're still pondering how to best get that information out to many of our stakeholders. So
what we're doing currently is we have a grant through the Nutrient Management Farmer Education, and one of our resource conservationists, Tony Smith, works with a lot of the operators in areas more at risk of water contamination. So he meets with them and shares maps, talks about the NR 151 standards, make sure that they're included in their upcoming nutrient management plans. And so we're seeing some level of success with that program.
thank you so much. So a very one-on-one approach.
Yep.
Can you hear me, Jamie?
I sure can.
Hi, this is Stephanie from Washington County. From the county side of things, resource evaluations on the ag performance standards, we've been going out to farmers for 10, 15 years. So as these new ones keep approaching, you're just continually talking about them, or, kind of reminding them about, oh, hey, now we have stuff on bedrock, or now we're doing nitrate. So I think it's just a continual one-on-one communication, awareness, visual, like the mapping is really good. I don't know if it's outreach in different field days or through their producer-led groups, maybe, because I know they talk about a lot of these little things. Or if you can get to people, I know, like by me, it's a little challenging because you're the urban-rural part, but the county fair tends to be more urban than rural. People that are there. So just talking about it and awareness, I think, is huge. So keep visiting your farms and farmers and building those relationships with those producers. That's my best advice.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And yes, Chelsea, if you'd like to unmute. Chelsea is an agricultural educator with Extension in Dane County. So Chelsea.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. I just wanted to answer Josh's question. So Farmers for the Upper Sugar River is kind of assumed that some nitrogen standards would be coming down the pipeline here. So this year we're cost sharing a zero nitrogen test strip, or we're including that in our cost share options. And we're trying to get some producers to participate in a nitrogen use efficiency data collection to share with everyone in the fall or winter meetings.
So thank you so much, Chelsea. And if anyone else would like to unmute and share how they're educating on the new potential groundwater nitrate standards, please feel free. Hearing that silence, like I said, I wanted to thank you all for attending today's webinar. Again, please sign up for next week if you're interested in hearing from our researchers from across the state. And if nothing else comes through and I don't hear anyone else and I don't see anything else in chat, I'm going to wrap up the webinar for today. And again, thank you all for attending. Hopefully you're able to take something back either to your job, to your farmer-led watershed, or to your community to spread the good word about cover crop, soil health, and conservation. So thank you all.